7 o'clock, and let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And then Glenn, if I could have Glenn come forward. So tonight, Glenn is taking the oath of office, and we'll do the swearing in. All right. I, Glenn Allen, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States and the constitutions and laws of the State of Washington, and that I will faithfully and impartially perform and discharge the duties of the office of Council Member Ward 4 for the City of Sedro-Woolley, Skagit County, Washington, according to law, and to the best of my ability and understanding. If I can get you to sign that. Excellent. This one. Trouble keeping yours charged. Yes, please take your seat. Does yours stay charged? No. Yeah. Stupid. Congratulations. Yes, congrats. Congrats, council member. Welcome, Glenn. Cheryl, will you please take roll call?
Yes. Councilmember Brenda Kinzer.
Present.
Councilmember Jermaine Cornegay.
Present.
Councilmember Jeff Wood.
Present.
Councilmember Judith Dunn. Councilmember Carl DeYoung.
Present.
Councilmember Jared Couch.
Here.
Councilmember Glenn Allen.
Present.
All right. So I am looking for an approval of the agenda.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the agenda. Second.
Okay. I have a motion by Councilwoman Kinzer and seconded by Councilwoman Cornegay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 6.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 6.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I have a question.
Yes.
So I was asked a question about appointments as to residency requirements for folks that are serving on our commissions and et cetera. I could not find anything that said that they had to be a Sedro-Woolley resident. Is that correct?
As far as I know. They've been sitting on the council for I don't know how many years already, Planning Commission, I mean.
I would have to double check to verify that, but I believe that there is no residency requirement to serve on the Planning Commission, and I haven't researched that for the Housing Authority.
All right, that was just a question I have. Thank you.
Okay, we had a motion by Councilman Couch, seconded by Councilman Owen. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. So we're going to move into staff reports, and I believe, Bill, are you going to give a presentation first? All right.
Sure.
Excellent. Okay.
Bill Chambers here. Last council meeting, there was a staff memo to council about just a summary of our AV upgrade for the council chambers, and there were some questions. So I put together a short presentation, and mainly here to answer questions. I've got Glenn Gardner here as well, who's been involved in some of the more technical parts of the planning. So with that, I'll go ahead and get this started. So The first thing is, what do we have right now, and what do we want? We've got, our current configuration is an analog system, so it's analog audio and video, and it's also wired technology focused, so underneath all these, there are raceways underneath all the floor here, and wires going up through the ceiling. A lot of those tend to fail with movement of the microphones and whatnot. So, and we've got a rack mount audio recording system, the digital audio that Cheryl uses, and a PC-based video recording system that was installed in 2008 and hasn't had any real upgrades since. The wall screens, we've got limited technology on those. They're real small. The projector screen's pretty difficult to see, especially for you folks up there. So we'd like to change that. And we have limited touch panel controls on the panel over here on the wall. And you can't do it from anywhere else. There's no way to remotely control that, which we would like. So some of the desired upgrades, digital audio video system, focus more on wireless technology where appropriate. Wireless microphones aren't going to work everywhere, but where we can use them, it would be nice to do that. I'd like to get everything into the technology closet over here, so rack-mounted AV recording system. Would like to expand the wall displays out here, and I'll explain more about that later. Like to enhance the touch panel so that we can control that wirelessly from an iPad or whatever. And would like to be able to record and display multiple video channels, not just the single one that we post on YouTube. So for the digital audio video system, we'd like to upgrade all of the cabling to HDMI or similar technology, get us away from the analog. I'd like to upgrade the core AV components to digital. That's mixers, DVD, Blu-ray players, recorders, and have optional analog inputs into those, so if anyone brings some analog technology, at least we can hook it up and play it or record it. I'd like to include connectivity to our existing IP telephone system so that if, say, one of you were traveling somewhere and needed to be part of a meeting, that you could telephone in and be a part of that meeting from far away. So like I mentioned, we want to get on wireless technology focused, replace the wired microphones with wireless where appropriate, upgrade the wireless assisted listening system. That too is old technology. When this facility was built, we were kind of on the cusp of, analog versus digital, and I think we went analog to save money back then. And now it's time to evolve. Also, the capability to transmit presentations wirelessly to displays from laptops, tablets, and smartphones. The rack mount recording would be fully integrated with the local area network, so that if there was a problem with it and it needed to be accessed remotely, Glenn or I could remote in and actually fix something, or stop or start a recording even, something like that. All of the AV recording components would be mounted in that rack. No more equipment underneath your feet up there, Mayor. Let's see, the HD recording to solid-state drives with removable media options. So ideally, it'd be nice if that also was a redundant recording system. So if there was a disk failure, we would have another copy of that recording. analog to digital converters were necessary, and the ability to add on live streaming at some point. I know some of you may or not be excited about that, about being on live streaming, but it is a nice component if you can go that way. Let's see. So on the wall and console displays, expand those to provide better visibility for the audience. That's the main purpose of adding large screens out here in the center of the room, is for the audience, not for council, not up at the dais. For the council, we would have individual displays at each seat, and over here in the staff area, probably one per every other seat. Like to provide, let's see, those screens would be 4 very large flat panel displays, and they could also be used during EOC activation as well for the Emergency Operations Center. If there were an earthquake or a flood or some other major disaster, it would be nice to be able to use those 4 screens for that as well. And let's see, we talked about the individual panels on each of the staff and council and mayor areas. So we'll go on to the next one. The touch panel and wireless controls. We'd like to upgrade and replace the existing wall touch panel for controlling inputs and displays and the channel volume and recording. I'd like to include the capability to mirror the touch panel controls on a laptop, tablet, or smartphone, so that, say if someone wasn't over here or didn't want to run over and touch the panel, they could do it from your iPad from up there. And record, display multiple video channels. I'd like to add additional cameras so that we have one focused on the dais up there, one on staff and the speaker, and one on staff and the audience, and one on the staff, one on speaker in the audience, and one in the staff area over here. And with that would be 3 channels. The 4th channel would be whatever is being displayed on the screens, so that in the end, what we would end up with is a recording with 4 little boxes that shows everything that's going on in the room. So it'll be a lot easier for people that can't make it to the meeting, that just can view the recording. They will be able to see the presentation that's being played and see, interactions between the different people in the room. Here's the fun stuff, cost estimates. So, we've looked at a lot of different ideas for the room, and it's been quite a process. We started off with a really simple task of upgrading the video recording system. And when we started bringing people in to kind of give us ideas and estimates, they also gave us new ideas that we hadn't thought of, and so we've been kind of gathering those and working with Aaron and others on coming up with a list of wanted items that will help enhance the council meetings. So from 20 to 30,000. That would basically get us an upgrade of the video recording system and the cameras, but that doesn't include any hardware installation and wouldn't integrate with our existing system and wouldn't upgrade anything else in the closet there. For 30 to 40,000, we're looking at getting everything in the list, or just about everything in the list, and but it would require substantial staff time for Glenn and I to run cables, and probably some of the public works folks as well. And the first class system, 90 to 100,000, will get us everything we want and be installed completely by a vendor and provide training to staff And I think both of those vendors that we talked to that were up in that range were both on the state contract as well. So procurement's easier, but that's pretty expensive. And lastly, our recommendation would be to increase the budget amount from, right now it's currently $30,000, and we think that it should be at least $40,000 and probably a bit more than that. But this is a kind of a unique project. Mostly what the IT department does is support all of the other departments. So we don't have a lot of interaction with council, but this is kind of your project. So input from council would be real helpful here.
Okay.
Any questions? I've got Glenn here too, who can answer some of the questions I might not be able to.
Well, my only question, just right off, the first option, the 20 to 30,000, it says does not include hardware installation, and so how does that? I mean, wouldn't that? I mean, that would be staff time, or? Yeah. So we could purchase the hardware, and Glenn and I could manage to get it in there. Neither one of us are really AV guys. You know, Glenn comes from a background of work putting in hardware in police and fire vehicles, not so much audio-visual stuff. And I come from a networking background and a software background, so we rely heavily on recommendations from vendors. So that would be in addition to that?
That would be, so for the 20 to 30,000, that just buys the hardware, and then we would be installing that. And that doesn't give us everything we want. That just upgrades the microphones, cameras, and the video recording system.
And it looks like the second option would too also require additional hours.
Yeah, but
Okay.
not nearly as much.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Councilwoman Kinzer?
Do you know, Bill, how this compares to the type of system that, say, Mount Vernon is running or Skagit County?
I think they're spent quite a bit more on their systems, and they also have not just the hardware and software, but they also have staff operating those.
Yeah.
We're trying to create a system that doesn't require users to be here and manage it while it's being recorded. So.
Thank you.
Councilman Couch, do you have questions? I know you were...
I do. So you said that the 30 to 40, and correct me if I'm wrong, gets us just about everything that we want, but we'll have substantial staff time to do most of the work. I guess my fear on that is, I think, we've just added a second position to kind of give you some relief, and I don't imagine that there's probably the staff time there to properly do this. And then it's also a little bit alarming, to task you guys with this project and it not be, one of something that you're super familiar with. I have full faith that the two of you would figure it out, but it seems like a project that would probably be more of a burden on your department than do any good. I think I probably had the most concern after last council meeting on this, and my point is, I fully support this, and I want us to get this done. I just want us to do this right, and I want us to do it once. And if that means, like I said last time, if we need to wait a year and figure out where we can, get to this 90 to 100,000 to do it correctly, and not, kind of just puzzle our way through this. It's something that I want to do right once. I don't, in 3 years, I don't want to go, well, we tried to make this hardware work with our existing panels and none of it works. Now we're back to replacing it all again because technology's we're always going to be behind the curve. But I guess, realistically, the system that we have, if the council can find the money, can we keep the system that we have working for another year and try to complete this project in 2021?
I think we could. There would be probably some short-term needs to replace the camera that we have and the recording system, though. It is ready to fail at any time. So.
Anyone else? Yes, Doug.
One possibility you have, just to throw it out there for you to think about, being that the end goal of this whole upgrade really is for better transparency and having information being communicated better. That's a good council goal. It fits your goals and objectives. We have $30,000 in the general fund budgeted for this already. An area maybe to look at is your strategic reserve. If you want to get this done now, probably by the end of 2020, you'll have in the 300s somewhere as an ending cash balance on that by the end of 2020. So it might be something to think about if you would like to commit funding from that fund to fill out the remainder of the project.
Thank you.
I guess, Bill, how confident are you in the 90 to 100,000 number?
Very confident, yeah. Yeah, the folks we've spoken to are, top of the line folks that have done some pretty huge projects.
And I guess what type of life could we expect to get from if we're paying that technology-wise? I mean, what's our longevity of that?
Well, if it's digital, other than replacing a few peripherals here and there, it should last a good 10 to 15 years. I mean, this one has lasted us 10, just about, so.
It would certainly free up you and Glenn to continue on with your job, your duties.
Thank you for letting me hire Glenn, by the way.
Yeah.
It's been a real plus.
Okay. So something to think about here. If there's no other questions?
I have one more.
Yes.
So having them train the staff, and then if things come up down the line, are they always going to be, how long do we have that opportunity to have them come train the staff? And
We didn't really get into the specifics on that. Most of these are the implementation. There's training during that, and then you can, for an extra X amount of dollars, you can have training as part of your annual maintenance for the system. Like right now, we have our phone system, IP phone system, is on an annual maintenance contract. That doesn't include any training. I wish it did.
Thank you.
Bill, sorry, one last question. If we are able to find the appropriate funding to go with the vendor-installed system, would our displays here, would they be, is it a wired internet connection? Because I know we've played round and around with the Wi-Fi in this area.
That'd be wired up there, yeah. It'd be HDMI to each one. It wouldn't be like a touch panel where you'd be controlling anything. It's just going to display what is being displayed on the screen.
Thank you.
All right.
That's a good question.
So, would you like for us to bring this back? I know this was something that we were looking at. We looked at it twice. Do you want us to bring it back with the possibility of using the council reserve fund?
Yeah. I would agree with that.
Mayor?
Yeah.
I'm opposed to using the reserve fund.
Okay.
Reserve is reserve. I do have a couple questions. So at the first level of the 20 to 30,000, we would not be able to improve the telephone conferencing, correct?
Correct.
All right. And how much, if we were to do this a la carte, how much would that be just for the telephone part?
And we haven't looked at that one separately. It really depends on what type of core hardware you put in the closet over here. But my guess would be, $5,000.
Okay.
That's a ballpark.
All right. And I'm just thinking about it's working. There are some creature features that are very cool. Then I also think about the Taurus back here that staff uses as well, that we kind of get by with less. And from my engineering brain, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I also agree with Councilmember Couch's question about the longevity of it. Thank you for that. That it would go 10 to 15 years. That's a healthy duration. So something to consider. Thank you.
Okay, so what I noticed from the council, most people were shaking their head. Why don't we go ahead and bring it back? We'll bring it back with the option of $30,000 and then also the possibility, if you're all okay with that, and we can have discussion on that then.
Mayor, I would like to have the phone, the 5,000, a part of that as well, because it is something that council members have used. I know I've used personally, and I know a couple more on the dais have, and I think that kind of communication would be important, and if it's just another 5,000, that doesn't seem prohibitive.
Thank you.
I'd just make a suggestion that we probably don't need to bring it back at a future meeting, but later in tonight's meeting, at the budget adoption point, if you want to adopt this program, then in adopting the budget ordinance, you can do it with a motion that includes additional funding for this project. And the fund that Doug's talking about is Fund 115. It's the City Council Strategic Reserve Fund. So the past uses for that fund have included the Downtown Association, the YMCA, the Community Action Agency, and advance payment of debt on this building. So it's not a traditional rainy day reserve fund that's dedicated for emergencies, but it is in fact for city council driven initiatives. So at least in my view, this would be an appropriate use of that money if that's what the council decides. So
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for the information. Okay. So thank you, Bill. Thank you for the presentation. That was great. It clarified a lot of questions.
Thank you.
So we'll move on with staff reports. Chief Tucker.
All right, so now that we're not quite certified on our election yet, but we're really, really, really close, and everything's still looking good.
it's certified.
It's certified. God, I thought that was until the 28th.
That's how Glenn's sitting up there.
Got it, all right.
Yep, it was certified this afternoon.
All right, so
Prop 1 officially passed.
there we go. So in reality, that's putting us to needing to hire, I could hire 6 people right now if I had the bodies, because it would take me so long to get them trained up and on the road. So in that light, we are doing a lot of work towards our increased hiring. We're doing oral boards next week and the following week. We're trying to get a pool. So far, we've gone through 40-some applicants, and we've gotten one that we've hired, and it's the same one. We haven't gotten any further. We keep digging deeper and deeper on our list, and we're not getting any good candidates. And I just went to the Chiefs and Sheriffs Conference last week in Chelan, and my colleagues across the state are having exactly the same problem. We're finding it hard to find good qualified candidates that pass all the background and work out. So we're still looking, we're still digging, we're actively recruiting, and probably after the first of the year we'll have a better idea of where we're at with our hiring list. We have to work with civil service to try to change the way we're doing our hiring off a civil service list to match Burlington and I think the Sheriff's Office and Mount Vernon's. We're trying to get a rolling, as we get new people, rolling them onto an existing list and see where they fit. Right now, we have to get a list and then exhaust it and then go to civil service, have them disqualify that list and start a new list, go through it and exhaust it. And with the volume of people that we're going to hire, that is not really doable in any sort of timely fashion. So we're working on that and reviewing our civil service meetings and stuff like that. So we'll keep you posted on that. And one of the things that probably, and I've spoke to Aaron on this about maybe start prepping for, is we didn't have a Law and Justice Committee meeting in 19 specifically for these kind of things. I think we've given presentations, but not really a committee meeting. So I'm going to work on that for early in 2020 to keep you all posted to see exactly where we're going and what we're doing with what we've got. You may have heard Burlington's had a couple of shootings recently. A couple of them have, one of the shootings had ties directly to Sedro-Woolley. I can't remember if it was the Mount Vernon or the Burlington one, but the suspects were tied directly to Sedro-Woolley. Everything happened somewhere else, but those folks had came from here. Some of those folks have been arrested, and we still have one more shooting that just happened recently, and we're still, Burlington's still looking for them. We're still trying to kind of see if this is a broader gang type thing. Everything is pointing to gang-related activity. We don't have a big concentration of gangs, but you all have probably seen the graffiti around, and we have isolated pockets that hit us here, and they live and breathe here, and then they go somewhere else to do their shady activities. So we're working closely with all the other agencies, trying to pin down who somebody is, and I've actually got an appointment to go do a police sketch for a witness tomorrow. So I'm going to be working on that with the Burlington Police Department tomorrow. We're gearing up for the Christmas parade and Christmas festivities have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, and you know we love parades. We have one every other day, it seems like, but we're gearing up, getting more staffed up for that, and coming up with the folks to come in and close the streets and make sure we get a smooth parade and the festivities on the 7th. And leading up to Thanksgiving, we're going to be closing McGargyle tomorrow for about an hour in front of Cascade Middle School. They do their yearly Cascade Middle School turkey trot. You have a whole herd of 7th and 8th graders and teachers running down McGargyle to Fruitdale and back, and it's actually a lot of fun. It's usually just drizzling down on us and kind of miserable, but everybody still loves it. So if you're in the area, that's what we're going to be doing. We'll be shutting down the road completely and then opening it back up for some limited traffic on the way back in. And then my final thing, and most importantly, the tiny wee monkey grandbaby turns 1 tomorrow. That was on my most important agenda. The grandkid who's walking now turns 1, so, and he's probably the cutest grandson ever. I don't know if you guys knew that. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Chief Tucker, or Klinger?
Well, I guess we're going to have to compare pictures. Just a couple of items. We got testing again for volunteer residents. We lost another one to North County. South County, I'm sorry. South County down south, which is a good and a bad thing. It's a bad thing that we're losing them. It's a good thing that we train them so well that they leave. So we're going to be testing again the first part of January. So if anybody knows, we got openings for volunteer residents and outside volunteers. So we're actually down about 3 residents. And then on a side note, it's turkey time. So the safety tips: don't put frozen turkeys into the deep fryer. And if you have an oven fire, close the door. Okay, then call. So, other than that, have a happy Thanksgiving.
Good tips. Thank you. Mr. Coleman.
All right. So you're probably aware, the Planning Commission's been working on the accessory dwelling units for quite some time now, and they're more or less wrapped up with their work, and I'll be bringing to them a final draft for them to make a recommendation on at the January 21st Planning Commission meeting. We're not going to do it. We're not going to have a public hearing in late December. It just doesn't seem like we're going to get a lot of people participating 5 days before Christmas. So we'll postpone that until January when people are re-engaged in land use and regulation type stuff. In the meantime, though, the Planning Commission and the City Council have a joint work session on the ADU issue. I'm not going to be bringing the council the draft at that time. Just going to kind of let the council and Planning Commission have some time to talk about, make sure that they're more or less on the same page. The Planning Commission wanted to check in with the council on just to make sure they're going in the right direction, but it's not. Doesn't seem like we need the council to be reviewing the draft and nitpicking everything yet. We'll let the Planning Commission finish their work and then bring it to the council for your full review. So that's been keeping us quite busy, as has the now 3 planned residential development applications that we have. So those are subdivision applications, residential subdivision applications. So we now have 3 applications in, so that totals just about 300 lots or units for new housing that are in the pipe. These are all just very recently received, so they're not, some haven't even been sent out to the neighborhoods yet, the 500-foot notice. So don't worry about that. All the process is still just getting started. But I wanted to thank you for hiring an assistant planner, because without an assistant, this work just would not be capable for me to have done on my own. So appreciate the hiring of Catherine, our assistant planner. And that's all I have for you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Freiberg?
Well, I guess top of the list is the results of the TIB grants this year. The city did well. Both of the applications we submitted were fully funded, including Jameson. That one we thought they might cut back. They have the option of awarding all or parts of that, but all the way from the tennis courts to Township Street will be repaired and overlaid, along with ADA ramps on all the corners there. So great project, and we'll start to design that yet this winter in-house. The other project was the SR20 lane widening project, which we were short about $500,000. The county was on board with making that up if it hadn't been funded, but this does provide some relief to them, and they're already into the project for about $725,000. So good result for the county and the city, and David is well into the design on that one. We plan to advertise it in the spring, build that, and be done by October. The county is planning on moving ahead with their project once the access is built over the creek. So great news on that. The 2 construction projects we've been working on have both completed. Borseth Robinson Sewer came in slightly under our original estimate and turned out well. There's basically 23 potential additional services there. We've already had some interest. The letters for connection fees or connection requirements have gone out to the neighborhoods. John's office took care of that for us, Michelle. And then the ADA ramp project and Complete Streets project is also complete, and added some needed ramps in various locations, including right across from City Hall. So other than that, we've got a whole bunch of projects under design, and John mentioned his thankfulness for Catherine, and we've also been able to utilize her services. That's been good. I'd just like to remind you that we're still working with the same crew we've had for a long time. We weren't able to fund another position there, but with this growth does come additional engineering requirements. David Lee wears many hats in my department, including doing the plan reviews when they come in. So the more we have, the less he has time to design the projects that we have on the books now. So just a reminder of that. And yeah, so that's it for me for now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Berg?
Looks like a healthy agenda tonight, so I don't have anything to add. Happy Thanksgiving.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Merriman.
I have just a couple items. One, with tonight's actions, we'll be wrapping up the budget process for 2020. Although that doesn't give us time off, we'll be immediately jumping right into getting the budget book together. So I'll be working with departments to get their narratives put together so we can get that out to council as soon as we can once we turn the corner of the year. One other thing we'll be doing, just to give you the heads up on, is converting to a biennial budget process this next year. And under state law, we're required to have an ordinance in place by June 30th. However, I'd like us to do that as soon as possible because there'll be quite a bit of work just getting the formats down and everything before we get into our budget process. So I'll have more information for you as we go forward into next year, and we'll get that process rolling. And that's all I have for tonight.
All right, thank you. Councilman Couch.
I just have one thing. I got a follow-up phone call, Mark, from Nathan on some concerns that I had over that we talked about last meeting with the chip seal on Orthway. I went and looked at Heather Lane and looked at what the slurry seal does to the chip seal, and it looks probably as close as you're going to get to re-asphalting without the large cost of that. So I think that I would hope that in the future, as we do these improvement projects, we can figure out a way to make that the end goal. I understand that it's more expensive, but I just don't think that the chip sealing is the way to go. And I think our Orthway's kind of an example of why it's not binding. It doesn't look good. We all have it in our driveways, and it's kind of an eyesore. But hopefully we can. I know we're going to have some budget constraints with roads and stuff with the car tab loss, but I think we need to figure out a way, or council needs to take a look at what we're going to do for funding our road improvements.
Well, ultimately, that is a decision I think the council will have to look at. With the loss of our $200,000 from the I-976, we're already going to be working with one hand tied behind our back. Chip seals have been one of the tools in our tool bag. Of course, about a third of the city streets are chip seal, and there's no complaints from folks when we re-chip seal those. It's mainly limited, as you pointed out, to the former asphalt overlays. We are going to look at trying to get a slurry seal together next year, and if we can get something affordable, we'll go back and hit that one. Our preliminary estimate for that, when Nathan looked at it for me earlier, and he probably told you this, was $45,000, which is half of our total local access budget to go back and fix an already fixed street. That's a pretty typical chip seal. There's some rock that comes off of it. It's not a failed chip seal by any means, and the other ones we've done look about the same.
Well, you do it on other roads that you get, they get high traffic.
Yes, there is that, and that's
so. And I mean, it works fine in the county.
Yeah.
With the way I understand of how this all came about, is that one person on the street complained about the street having issues, and then we end up with this chip sealing, and with the city utilizing the county to do the chip sealing, we're at the whim of when it works for the county, which means we're going to get chip sealing later in the year, so we're not going to have the hot month of August to let that sit up. And
we're certainly not unique in this. Nathan probably told you, but he's done some research. And Mukilteo, for instance, had started an aggressive chip seal program because they're in the same boat we are. There's not enough money to maintain the streets we have. After a couple seasons of complaints like this, they've dropped it, but their alternative is not acceptable to me, and that is they're just going to let their streets go back to gravel, and that's not acceptable.
So how do we decide which roads get chip sealed, then slurry sealed, or just chip sealed?
Yeah, so we've already made a policy decision within Public Works that for asphalt paved streets, we're going to do something besides a plain chip seal. This year wasn't just a plain vanilla chip seal. We did put a fog seal on it, but it wasn't enough. I agree with that. It doesn't look like asphalt. The slurry seal, as you saw with Heather, will give us a product that's pretty close. Mm-hmm. It's not quite as durable as an asphalt overlay, but quite a bit cheaper. So that's an option for those streets coming up down the road rather than doing nothing. We can do less with that. And we've also talked to a local chip seal contractor that's got another option we're going to look at too, which is a double shot with a fog seal on it that actually provides quite a bit more lifetime out of a chip seal. They're typically 7 to 10 years as opposed to 25 to 30 on an asphalt overlay. So anyway, we are looking at it, and we're going to avoid this kind of level of complaints again. Orth was a little unique in that it doesn't have sidewalks. And a lot of the complaints we did address, and by the way, there's one main complainer. There's others that
He
are
comes
saying...
to my house, I know. So try living on the same street. And try coming up with a good explanation when you're looking at a road and you have a driveway full of chip seal, and you... how do you argue with it?
Yeah,
well,
hard to argue.
Sorry, the city's got a tight budget, But
that we are planning to do a policy change, and we have already, and we'll handle that differently in following years. So,
That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Councilman Owen?
Yeah, I got another question for Mark. The section of Ball, between Northern and Ferry, that thing is getting so bad, I don't even like to drive over it anymore, but I'm sure that'll be a case of complete demo and redoing it. It's so bad. I don't think a chip seal would work on it. I know the city supervisor lives on there, but I don't think people will think we're showing partiality towards him, And it's awful bad. And then where Ball runs into Northern from Highway 20, that's getting beat out awful bad again. There's some pretty good chuck holes there.
yeah, Nathan's already developed his list for 2020, and I actually just don't remember if that's on it, but I will report back next time with which streets we're looking at.
Yeah. One more thing is, last council meeting, I mentioned about a semi parked on Ferry Street and asked that someone would check and see if cones would be adequate. And I went over Thursday morning and there was no cones, no nothing. And lo and behold, somebody did make contact with that trailer. And then it was moved up into the driveway. It was a safety hazard because you had to cross the center line to get around it. You didn't have room to stay in your own lane. But I think accident could have been prevented and bodily injury. I'm not the law enforcement, but when I see a safety hazard, I know it's a safety hazard.
So there were actually multiple contacts between law enforcement and the owner of that property, even up to the afternoon of the accident, that concluded with, please at least put some cones out. The owner really felt like that was a good parking job and disagreed with the law enforcement perspective on that. And, we saw what happened. So.
It should have been the trailer owner to put the cones out, or reflectors or whatever.
Correct, yeah, and that was the request made to the trailer owner.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Actually, the request was made to move it, and if you're not willing to do that, then at least put some cones out. I think the quote was something like, somebody's going to get hurt, man, at least put some cones out. His response was, I'm a CDL driver, you're not, I know the rules, you don't. And so the choice then for the city is, do you tow, a trailer like that, or, what do you do? And the decision was made to try persuasion.
Yeah.
And then ultimately after the accident, I think he was told to relocate his trailer or it would be towed that night.
Okay.
So Chuck, Aaron was able to find the pavement repair list for next year. Now, we haven't gone back and parsed all this with the I-976 results, but it does not currently include Ball Street, but we'll take another look at that.
Yeah,
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Cornick?
I just kind of want to remind everyone about the community Thanksgiving dinner. It's at I think this is the second year they're doing it at the food bank from 12:30 to 3 on Thanksgiving Day. And also, I attended the SCOG meeting as Mayor Pro Tem for our mayor, and we did not have quorum, but we did have a really good presentation from the Census Bureau, who, I guess things are going to get started in March. We'll get like 3 or 4 postcards out, and the Census Day is actually April 1st. And she just kind of was pushing just to make sure everyone participates. They have a lifelong, what do you call it, like a oath of, they have to be secure, everything's secure. They have a lifelong oath. And and then they're working with the post office because the post office does not accept in the post office boxes, the postcards, which would remind people to fill out the census. And so they're working with the post office on that. Hopefully they will be able to accept the postcards. But the day is April 1st, and please participate. There's 55 programs that directly affect us here. So, including, Title I for schools and Medicare and Section 8, WIC, and all these things. And we've been missing out on funding for our community. So, I'm just asking everyone to participate. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Kinzer.
Nothing tonight other than happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
All right, thank you. Councilman DeYoung.
Well, I'd like to welcome my new seat man. Nice tie. I just wanted to thank the Sedro-Woolley Police Department for your interlocal cooperation with the shooting in Burlington last Saturday night, and I'm very, very happy that none of the officers were injured. And also, let's again consider a joint resolution of the City Council and the Mayor of Sedro-Woolley declaring a citywide policy of inclusion at the December 11th Council General Meeting. And then Saturday, December 7th, between 2 p.m. and 8 p.m., let's join in the family fun at Sedro-Woolleyville Magic of Christmas. As it was stated, it's a parade and a bunch of fun festivities. And we kick things off with the Ugly Sweater Dash. So if you'd like to register, make sure you do that at the Chamber of Commerce before 1 p.m. on Saturday the 7th. And as we've done in the past, I'd like to schedule a public legislative priorities town hall with our 39th Legislative District delegation here in these chambers and develop the City of Sedro-Woolley 2020 legislative agenda for the upcoming state legislators' 60-day short session in Olympia. And the Red Cross and its partners will install a limited number of free smoke alarms for those who cannot afford to purchase smoke alarms or for those who are physically unable to install a smoke alarm. The Red Cross installs a limited number of specialized bedside alarms for individuals who are deaf or hard of hearing. So to request a free installation, please complete their form on the internet at getsmokealarm.org. That's getasmokealarm.org. Getasmokealarm.org. And then happy Thanksgiving.
All right, thank you. Councilman Allen.
It's good to be back here after 20-some years, and I'm just looking forward to working with this council. Basically all new staff after 20-some years and all new council. So anyway, I'm looking forward to it. So happy Thanksgiving.
Excellent. Thank you. And I have, so I was at the Sedro-Woolley Downtown Association meeting last night, and I want to make the council aware that Ian announced last night that we did not receive certification from Main Street. So they're going back to the drawing board, trying to figure out what it is that we need to do. I asked him to forward me the letter. I haven't seen it yet, but he was saying that 2 things were the issue. One is that we don't have a full-time director, and they said that they require that, I guess. And the other is the budget. So those 2 things that we're going to be looking at, or he's going to be looking at, but I just wanted to make you aware of that. Disappointing news, but that's where we're at right now with the Downtown Association. And
is that a city director or an association?
Yeah, the downtown director, Downtown Association director. Yeah, a director of the Downtown Association. Right. Full-time. He's part-time. Yeah. So, but, Sedro-Woolley is still a great place to live. We have great businesses. We have great people who move here. There's lots of opportunities. So, I know that we're going to come along with this, yeah.
So when they find these things, they can, they can reapply, or
Yes, absolutely.
they don't have to wait. They can reapply right away, is what I guess.
Oh, I don't know about the time period. He didn't talk about that, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's an annual process.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
All right. So with that, I am going, it's 7:54, and I'm going to open it up for public comment. After the public comment, we'll have the public hearing on the budget if you want to address the budget. Want to wait till then to make your comments. But right now, just public comment, and I ask that you give your name and address and keep it to 3 minutes. So is there anyone for public comment? Yes.
My foot went to sleep and nobody cares. Dennis O'Neill, I reside at 109 Talcott Street. I was listening to that speech by Aaron over there about giving numerous warnings out for a truck that's halfway out in the street or a quarter way or whatever. It wasn't supposed to be parked there. You know, this is the second time in 2 weeks we've heard about I don't know what the policy is. I'm sure it's not falling all on Lynn's lap, but you know, there was a guy there 2 weeks ago that gave quite a little speech about how he was scared to go out in his front yard because the traffic going so fast. And it turned out our city management evidently has decided not to write very many tickets, and there have been numerous speeders. I don't know if it was in your area or some area else, but you know, we get a lot of warning tickets out. I wonder what the limit is on warnings. It sounds from Aaron that there was a number of warnings to this guy and nobody wrote him a ticket. That's what I got out just now. Maybe I missed something there. But I don't know why they wait that long to just tow the truck away or give a guy a ticket and get him to move it. It seems like we hire police officers and management and supervisors that I really wonder what their job is. You can only give so many warnings. I don't know what the limit is. I'd like to know. Is this thing working? Anyway,
maybe you should do a ride-along if you'd like to know what their job is.
Pardon?
I said maybe you should do a ride-along if you'd like to know what their job is.
The information, sir. Think I get that? Anyway, on the budget, I was looking at here between 2015 and 2019. I think the average yearly increase on 4 or 5 positions, city supervisor, finance, planning director, police and fire chief, was about $26,000. And now you're going from 2019 to 2020, you got $41,000 increase for the same individuals. I think they're all the same as they were in 2015, except for, of course, finance. I wondered how we can justify that. We went out and talked about Proposition 1, about how we need it for safety, and we had a really nice picture of a police officer and a small kid in front of a patrol car. We pushed that proposition real hard, and the first thing you do is give everybody a big raise out of that. And I don't know what the rank and file's getting, the police officers on the street, and I don't know what we're offering to. I think it's going to come down to a bidding war, and I hope we save some money to get in a bidding war so we can hire some police officers. It sounds like supply and demand. You either have to increase what you're willing to pay, or you're not going to get supply. Demand's high. You got to come up with more money or benefits. It's simple as that. There's a limited supply. What did we, you know, maybe it's secret what we're offering them. I'm sure it's with the market, but maybe the market needs to be adjusted upward and we pay more money to get good people. I don't know, but whatever we're doing obviously isn't working yet, and we've been short 2 patrol officers for I don't know how long, with 1 quitting and 1 being fired. I just hear more questions than I hear answers from everybody. But I really wonder how we can afford this rather high increase from 2019 to 2020 when we're supposing we got a tight budget. How do we justify that? I don't know. Thanks.
Anyone else for public comment?
Sean Van Tassel, 795 Summerhill Drive, Sedro-Woolley. Just here to make a comment real quick. I started about 10 months ago a local running, walking group called West 20 Runners and Walkers. I met Carl there one of the first Saturdays, and of course, one of our first things we started talking about was running trails, tying the community together from one point to the other. You're just an awesome guy to talk with, and kind of through that, talking a little bit, he found out I was also the head coach of Sedro-Woolley High School cross country, which we, by the way, I will brag every chance, had an amazing historic year. First time we ever had a boys team go to state. It was just an amazing time, an amazing part to be at Sedro-Woolley High School.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Along with that, lately we've been talking a lot about kind of tying in some of these trail systems, that kind of stuff. And Carl had mentioned to me about the bank restoration along Riverfront down there, and I was telling him how often we actually have a county meet where Anacortes, Mount Vernon, Burlington, they all tie in right there at Riverfront. It's an amazing day. You guys should come watch. Some local athletes really do a phenomenal job. But often we'll run the team down River Road, which most of you know what River Road's kind of like, a little shady, but we have to get down there. That's one of our main spots we do workouts. And Carl starts talking to me about this grade separation of putting a trail basically from the high school right to where one of the main places we run at. So just wanted to bring it up, tell you we're a huge fan. We've seen the sidewalk improvements, we've seen the road improvements. It does not go unnoticed. We've got moms with strollers at our group. They're like, oh, I can actually get down this little ramp now. So it's been amazing, it's been great. But the idea of tying that in and getting some guys in, at our running group, we've had people from Anacortes, people from Bellingham, Everett. We've had a lot of people come to our community, and we work with Primal Coffee, we work with the Woolley Market, we work with local people. So we tie it in downtown, but we definitely like the idea of seeing these trail systems looping around, kind of getting people downtown and having that draw. Our mission statement, I just read this actually. I'd never read Sedro-Woolley's mission statement. That's probably my fault. To provide services and opportunities which create a community where people choose to live, work, and play. I think we've done an amazing job. This running group was a surprise. People told me it wouldn't work. They're like, oh, that's kind of like a Bellingham thing. We wrestle, we play football. But I've seen community growth through this group. Like, yeah, I wouldn't believe. Like, people are like, hey, it's just not going to take off. And here we are, a Tuesday night where it's freezing rain and cold, and we've got people with headlamps running down Rosa Trails. So it's been amazing. We're big fans. Any trail system work. I know I can get the high school kids out there with shovels and rakes, and I know there's some people with our West 20 group who are more than willing to roll up their sleeves and kind of see something connecting some of this. So that's my time.
Thank you. Yeah. Anyone else?
My name's Philip Murray. I live at 223 State Street. The other day I was watching over there at the library, and they brought in all these huge glue lambs, and then they, last week, they loaded up a semi-load, 60-foot semi-load, full load, hauled them out. And I'm wondering why that was. Is there some problem with it or what? You know, the thing's so darn expensive that there shouldn't be any mistakes. People like examples of the different towns and stuff and how you can raise sewer, garbage, and all that rates. Well, here's an example of what you could have had. It's right here in town, Sedro-Woolley. Award-winning green builder, Martha Rose Construction, has one level work home left in this 6-unit enclave in net zero home. It's $397,000. It's a good deal. They're nice places. You could have bought 25 of those with the cost of the library. You would have had 44,000 square feet. Then there's another one. Cascade Ridge Hilltop Estate. 5-bedroom, 5-bath, 8,391 square feet on 2.62 acres, overlooking Skagit Valley, Olympic Mountains, and San Juan Islands. Tucson character with multiple living spaces, 5 covered parking spots with abundant workspace, large elevated deck with hot tub, expansive grounds, patio with utilities, greenhouse. It's $2 million. You could have 5 of these. That's 41,955 square feet and 13 acres. You have 11,000 square feet. That place is only worth about $2 million when the thing is done. I don't see the quality that you're getting for that kind of money. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, so it is 8:04. I will close public comments, and at 8:04, I will open it for public hearings. And this is regarding the 2020 annual budget. So, Sean, I see you had signed up for this. You're first on the list here.
Just again, going to push the trails. I mean, it's a great opportunity, definitely with the restoration of the natural vegetation along the trail, that kind of thing, salmon habitat. You get into all this stuff, and it just, people soak it up. It's environmental, big-time environmental. People love that kind of stuff, but at the same time, it really, I think, provides something for Sedro-Woolley that creates kind of what our community's grown into. I moved down here, I lived here 2 years prior to moving back to Alaska. We've been here about 4 years now, and I've seen downtown Woolley from about 10 years ago roll into something where people are actually down there. Like, we're seeing some growth, we're seeing little community places that people hang out at instead of you just drive past. So with this running group, with trails like that, with rails getting the upgrade, with the sidewalk upgrades, I think it's just pulling people into our community. I know our cross-country team has just been loving this new section of rails. It was amazing to not have this like crazy footing. It's really hard to get our kids all the way up to Northern State, mileage-wise. Like, if you send them out, by the time they get there to do a workout, you've already went 7 miles. So to get down to Riverfront is an amazing opportunity for our team, and I think just going to help kind of grow our team on the high school level part, but also with our West 20 group, I think it'll just do amazing things. Like I said, we're willing to help. Whatever funding comes in, I will do special sponsored runs, that kind of thing, to just say, hey, sign up to help, we'll get you a t-shirt, print it offline for super cheap, donate some money. But something to throw in the budget and think about in the future is definitely that trail system. I think it would just be vital to kind of continue to see this growth that we've seen in downtown Woolley. I think it'll just tie in everything and just be a good opportunity for us. So that's it. Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else who would like to talk about the budget? I think, Mr. O'Neill, you had signed up. Did you want to talk about the budget, 2020 budget?
I think I already did. Thank you.
Okay. So is there anyone else? If not, it is 8:06, and I will close the public hearing and open it up to the council. Mr. Merriman, do you want to talk about?
So the ordinance that you have tonight, it incorporates the final two items we had. One was Proposition 1 that has been included, and the second item that has been included now is the loss of the revenues from the Transportation Benefit District. So everything is final. Nothing else has changed since the presentation I made at our last work session. So it's all good to go. So what we're looking for is for City Council to adopt Ordinance 1938-19 this evening.
So, if there's a motion, does somebody want to make a motion to, with the option to use the additional funding for the City Council Chamber AV upgrades?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like to make the motion that we use $70,000 in funds from the Council Reserve Fund 115 for the AV upgrades to council chambers.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Yes?
I have an amendment.
Okay.
I move that we have the AV upgrades to the $30,000 level plus $5,000 for the phone upgrade.
Okay.
I'll second that.
So no, there's already a motion on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I have a parliamentary inquiry then. Our amendment's in order.
Well, of course, that's up to the chair to resolve. I'm happy to advise, but it seems to me the amendment you're requesting would actually entirely change the motion that's on the table.
Right, because
you're looking at changing the dollar amount. Yes.
So, Mr. Parliamentarian, it would seem to me that we could resolve the amendment first and then get to the main motion, and both could be resolved pretty quickly.
So I'm going to go with the motion that's on the table that was put out there by Councilman Couch. It is to...
Point of order.
Yes?
I would like a further explanation of why the amendment is out of order, please.
It seems to me it's the motion for the $70,000. What you wanted to do is actually changing the motion. It'd be a second motion that you're doing, correct?
It is amendment to the primary motion, to the main motion, yes.
Who has to accept the amendment to the original motion? Is it the motion?
So the process is, motion is made, that's your main motion. That was seconded. Actually, didn't hear that, but I'm assuming that was seconded. So then a motion to amend was made, which was also seconded. And at that point, the council would vote on that motion to amend. And then you get to the main motion.
Okay. So going with the amendment to do the 2020 budget with the amendment of 30,000 plus the 5, 30,000 plus the 5. The motion was made by Councilman DeYoung, seconded by Councilman Owen. All in favor?
Madam Mayor?
Yes?
I would like to amend the amendment.
Okay.
To make it $70,000 out of the Council Reserve Fund 115.
I need a second.
Second.
Well, I mean, at some point, you got to call timeout on this. You only get two, right? If you take the vote on the motion to amend the motion, and then you get to the motion itself. Right. Otherwise,
So I'm going to go with what I put out there. It is 2020 budget, to accept the 2020 budget with the amendment to add 30,000 plus 5. To go with the 30,000 plus 5. And the motion was made by Councilman DeYoung, seconded by Councilman Owen. And I called for all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
So we have 2 unopposed.
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, so we have 4 opposed. So now I'm going to go back to what the original motion was, the main motion, which is 2020 budget with the option to use the $70,000 from Fund 115 to fund the City Council Chamber AV upgrades. All in favor?
Madam Mayor, is there discussion?
No, I'm moving forward with it.
I have a discussion point.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I really respected what our city manager and city supervisor had to say about 115, and it was highlighted on what I think the money should be used for, which is paying down the debt of this building to save us from paying that interest and getting more capital into our general fund faster. And that is my value statement on that. So thank you for the information. I'll be voting no.
And we still will be doing that.
I'm sorry?
We'll still be making the extra payment. It's still going to happen.
I was not aware of that.
So.
So.
All in favor?
Oh.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. So the 2 opposed were DeYoung and Owen. Budget passes with the $70,000 used from Fund 115 for the AV upgrade in the chambers. Okay, moving on to unfinished business.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I'm so sorry. I'm just trying to put the things in the right boxes. It was my understanding that we were just voting on the supplemental of the AV and not on the whole budget. And that changes things for me if we're voting on the whole budget, but I was under the impression that you had asked for an amendment a motion to increase for the AV.
What I said was the 2020 annual budget with the additional $70,000.
I'm sorry I had a miscommunication there. Thank you for the clarification.
so just for the record, was that the intent that the budget ordinance was adopted then by that vote?
Yes.
Yes.
That was the intent of my motion.
Okay, I just want to make sure we've got that in the minutes, so thank you.
Poor Cheryl.
Live and learn.
Moving on to unfinished business, the comprehensive purchasing policy. This is our second read, and let's see, who's covering this?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to speak to that just a little bit.
Absolutely.
I wasn't present for the last meeting. I apologize for that, in vacation, and I didn't have a chance to read that as it went to the council. I have some concerns about the policy as it's currently written. I have sent out my concerns to the council members who had expressed concerns with the limits last time, and the limits were one thing. The other thing were some authority issues. I wasn't here to point this out, but we have a resolution in place already, I believe it's 73909, that gives the Public Works Director the authority to approve change orders on public works projects under $350,000 and under. I've been working under that for basically 11 years now and found that to be quite important for what I do. As you all know, construction is a very volatile and changing business. To have to bring all of these things that are above 10,000, which is what the policy would require, would greatly complicate what I do. And I just wanted to point that out to the council and ask your reconsideration on that. The limits themselves, as they were originally proposed, are more in line with what I would recommend for you to think about. And the reason for that is the purpose for this policy is to streamline and make our lives more manageable. You know that we're all fairly stretched on what we do, and we would prefer not to have to bring to council fairly small contract amendments. And with the inflation on construction costs and also materials and equipment, lower limits are going to require you to look at an awful lot of stuff that we currently handle within the departments. We do go through the budget process. The purchases that we generally make are budget items. And so just from a procedural standpoint, I would ask you to consider looking at those limits again. I also have some other minor amendments that are procedural that we would like to bring in. And so what I would propose is that we bring that back to you again on December 11th. And I can flesh out these other things I'm talking about here, and I'd be glad to share the notes that I sent to 3 of the council members with everyone with those suggestions. Again, what we're trying to do with the policy is streamline the process, make it work better, and better utilize the time of our department heads. It probably affects the most what we do in Public Works because we run the most. We run somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 contracts a year, small contracts under $350,000, 8 to 10 professional services on-call agreements, and these things change quite frequently. And I see a lot of additional paperwork resulting from the lower limits, and in particular, lowering my existing limit from 25,000 down to 10, I think is going to cause some real procedural problems. So that's my request.
All right. So do we have any questions regarding Mr. Freiberger's request that we adopt it as 50,000? You want the 50,000, is that correct?
Yeah, and actually, because the limits right now, in addition, the contracts under 350 are city supervisor rather than public works director. That's another thing that section 7.3, I think, something like that. So it does take some additional work on it to bring that all into play. So if the council's amenable, we'd like to bring that back to you again for your reconsideration and at the next meeting, and then I can address any additional concerns that might come up with any of you.
Mayor?
Councilman Couch, do you have a question? I thought you looked at me like you had a question.
Madam Mayor?
I don't, Mayor.
Hi. So I really appreciated Mark's email that he sent me, and it's my understanding that going to a third reading does not put in jeopardy any current projects.
Does not.
And so I'm very happy to wait till December 11th. Thank you. Thanks again for the email, Mark.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. So we will bring this back. You wanted to bring it back reading as it reads now, reduce delegated authority of 25,000, or do you want it to read at 50,000? As Mark has requested.
Madam Mayor? I would put out for the suggestion of consideration under the background there that we would just add Well, let's see, we could just add $50,000 for the Director of Public Works there in the first sentence, in the italicized section.
That's what he was asking.
Does that work?
Well, I think just globally, there's three different sections that kind of all touch on the same things, and I would prefer to bring you back one that highlights all of those, and then we can discuss.
I guess we can stand by for his draft.
Yeah, so that's separate.
Yes.
Yes.
I guess the only thing I would ask is if I'm open to looking at a new draft, but I would like an explanation for why and examples of the functionality of it.
And you have a chance to see how that's.
I have not.
I have that explanation in there, and I'd be glad to make that a full council memo.
That'd be excellent. Do that, please.
And the resolution that you're referencing for projects under 350,000, I guess, what's the effect of this on that if we were already at 50,000? Then,
well, if you adopt a new one, that authority.
So the 350,000 came after the first purchasing policy.
Well, the 2009 purchasing policy, I think, would be superseded by this policy here. That would go away, basically. Okay. So we need to, if you're amenable to that, we would recreate that in the new policy. That's what I would understand from that.
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mark. So moving on to new business, the 2020 salary ordinance, page 90 of your packet.
Madam Mayor?
Doug, did you want to? Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, we're going to have
Doug, did you want to
thanks.
talk about it?
Just briefly, I did have an ordinance copy in your council packets. I did hear today from a staff member who said, is there any hidden meaning to my not being on the salary ordinance list? And so rest assured, that was not intentional. But we did have a new position added this year that I have now added to the ordinance. So your late materials ordinance is the final form.
Okay.
And we have everyone included. So we are looking tonight to adopt ordinance 1943-19.
Any discussion?
What's the percentage change?
The percentage for the cost of living adjustment is 2.3%. And then this is also the third and final year of the Ross Audrey salary study that was done 3 years ago. So this incorporates those remaining pieces into this ordinance.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, I move to divide the question into three ordinances, Section 1 through 3, which deals with represented workers, Section 4 and 7, which would be a separate ordinance on salaries and wages for non-represented employees, and the third section, that would be Section 4, 7, and 8, and then the third ordinance on Section 5 and 6, which is elected officials.
Okay. Is the council amenable to that?
I didn't hear a second.
Is there a second?
So I'm just, can you go with the numbers one more time?
I'm so sorry. So 1 through 3, which, and please correct me if you see something different there, Councilman. 1 through 3 is inclusive of all the represented employees, and Section 4, 7, and 8 is the unrepresented employees, and 5 and 6 is the electeds. So I'm seeking 3 different votes.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion by Councilman DeYoung to divide this up, sections 1 through 3, then 4, 7, 8, and then 5, 6, and it was seconded by Councilman Owen. Yeah, do that. Can we
I'd just
divide
like to know why.
Well, I don't actually understand what you're trying to do. Are you looking for 3 different ordinances? So this would not be ripe for voting on tonight because we'd have to go back and draft them. Section 8, for example, would live in all 3 ordinances, not just in one. To have an ordinance that we could adopt would require different recitals in all 3. to provide the details. So I don't know if that's what you're looking for, then we'll come back at December 11th, I guess, with 3 ordinances that would do the same thing that one does tonight. If that's the intent of the council. I don't know, but this is the first time I've ever bumped into this before, where y'all want to cut an ordinance into pieces and make it into new ordinance, like an earthworm that has 3 lives.
Madam Mayor, as a fisherman, I will respond to that I do appreciate 3 sections of bait, and to have the section that I prefer of what I think one of these things is going to pass really easy, and I think there needs to be discussion, robust discussion on a couple other items. So,
for example?
Thank you.
For example?
Which sections are we seeking discussion on? Because I'm just trying to wrap my head around it, because I think we have settled contracts with most of our represented.
Yeah, I'm directing my questions through you as our general guidance principles. So yes, I would see that there are some things that are settled, like 1 through 3. But I think I would like to have further discussion on the remaining items. And thank you, Aaron, for Section 8. That does make sense that it's global.
So my question to you is, so if you feel 1 through 3 is already settled, why can't we just talk about the rest and then do whatever? Make a vote or choose to come back on the 11th? Why do they have to be in 3 different sections?
To me, that they are 3 different categories of discussion. I'm not looking for the horse to get a whole bunch of whooping here. So
okay. So all I'm asking is, why can't we just have that discussion? Why can't you just bring up what your concerns are? We can have that discussion, and that way we're talking about the whole ordinance.
Because now we have a motion on the table that's been seconded that needs to be resolved.
So, all in favor of wanting to bring this back on the 11th as 3 separate ordinances, signify by saying aye. Okay, does not carry. So, back to my original question.
All right, thank you.
So obviously you have things that you'd like to discuss. Why don't you go ahead and lead this off?
I defer for a moment. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to make comment? If not, do we have a motion?
I don't even see it anymore.
Page 90. Page 90.
Madam Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm trying to get back to it. Is first reading is action requested?
Yes. Mr. Merriman asked for an action. I think what he said.
I would just say our history of this has generally been a first reading action. It's an ordinance necessary to implement the budget. There's no surprises in here. This is not the first time any of these numbers have been seen by the council. They've been discussed throughout the budget process. So that's why that happens. There's no requirement that it happen tonight. If you'd prefer to hold it to the last meeting of the year, then there would be a requirement that it happen at that meeting, obviously before any of these things could go into effect.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Since whatever the questions were have not been brought up, I would move to adopt ordinance 1943-19.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion by Councilman Couch, seconded by Councilwoman Cornegay to accept ordinance, to pass ordinance 1943-19. Any more discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. I just needed a moment, so thank you for that. I would like, I see on section 6 where we're talking about the mayor of Sedro-Woolley shall be paid an annual salary of $28,953. That's about $2,700 a month. And then annually or at other such intervals as the council desires, the council shall review the salary of the mayor and make cost of living adjustments consistent with those other non-represented employees. I would like to see language because, Madam Mayor, I recall from our discussions all the way back through March that you we're open to discussion of a CPI or this cost of living adjustments to salary councils or the council salary. And I don't see that in here in Section 5. And that's kind of the crux of it here.
Well, the council actually voted not to give themselves a raise this year. We did that in work session, or you did that in work session.
And here we are at the budget, which is for next year, and I'm just bringing up the point that it was talked about, and it's been 11 years and no cost of living adjustment. So I'm going to make that note.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Again, the city council, we're not employees, we are civil servants, and so I see this as it's not really applicable, I guess.
Madam Mayor? It is something that I see that if the executive has a CPI, is also a civil servant, and not the employee as has been painted here, I just see it consistent with the electeds having a CPI. So that's my point. Thank you.
Councilwoman Kinzer?
Madam Mayor, in my opinion, since the council voted not to give the council a raise, we can readdress this for the 2021 budget later, if so desired by the council.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so if there's no further discussion, I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so 2020 salary ordinance 1943-19 passes. Moving on to 2019 annual budget amendment number 3. This is ordinance 1944-19, page 94 in your packet. And Mr. Merriman, did you want to make any comments regarding this?
I do. Thank you, Mayor and Council. This ordinance is to do the final house cleaning budget amendments for 2019. I did list out, I believe, 9 different transactions that we are doing an amendment for with explanations and everything on those. I can answer any questions on any of those items, but what we're looking for tonight is for Council to adopt ordinance 1944-19.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. Looking for...
I move to approve ordinance 1944-19.
Okay.
I don't see the whole thing.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion by Councilwoman Cornegay, seconded by Councilwoman Kinzer. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 2019 annual budget amendment number 3 passes. Sewer general facility charges. This is the first reading, page 101 on your packet.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll take that one up. So, in conjunction with the work that Katie Isaacson has done for PACE engineers for our sewer comprehensive plan, we looked at the rates, and you've already moved on the rates to go with the CPI increase on that. We mentioned during that discussion that we also needed to look at the general facilities charge for sanitary sewer. These have not been adjusted since 2013 when we reduced them from their previous rates. The general facility charge before 2013 was $8,926. It was reduced to $6,995. That was in recognition of the troubles that the recession had caused for our development community. Since that time, we've had quite a bounce back in terms of building. In fact, it's straining us a bit. And you've heard my many discussions now on the effects on our treatment plant that growth is having. We have identified in our comprehensive plan now that we've got some major projects to do. We've budgeted for the initial ones in 2020, and you've seen that in the rate study, things that we've looked at before. The other element of this that supports those projects at the wastewater facility is the general facilities charge. That's what that purpose is. And so we are proposing to adjust that, bring it back up to the levels comparable to what it was before 2013. There's two ways we could do this, which we discussed. We can have, and there's a chart in your packet talking about the various methods of addressing general facility charges. That's on page 103. And by the way, we did meet with the Utilities Committee on this a couple of weeks ago and discussed this. But those different methods are called out there. One of them is debt plus funded only. One is completed projects. One is based on planned projects. Kind of a combination is alternate C. You can see that those go up quite substantially depending on which is chosen. What staff has proposed, and Ms. Isaacson said was a reasonable, defensible way to do this, is to take an approach of doing a one-time bump of $1,500 in the rates, and then increasing by the CPI in subsequent years. What we found in the analysis is that doing this, combined with the rate increases that you've already approved, will keep our account 410, which is our sewer reserve fund, solvent through the next 10 years, including the ramp up to the new treatment plant modifications, which we are anticipating will be planned in 2026 and started construction in 2027 and 28. This will maintain our minimum fund balance of $1 million doing this. Without the bump, if we did it just with a rate increase, we would drop below our minimums in 2026. So we think, to be conservative, it's prudent for us to address a bump, but not to go to the extent which we could, which would be to actually double the rates for the general facilities charge. We don't see that as being necessary, although it is defensible, and that is one of the options you could choose. But a prudent approach is to have a bump at this time of about that value, and then go forward from that basis. We've also calculated, you don't have a chart on it in there, but it's addressed in the ordinance, the general facilities charge for commercial. We do that in a different manner. The first one was the single-family residence charge. For commercial, we currently do that based on the number of fixture units. And our existing fixture unit charge is $291 per fixture unit, and that was a reduction in 2013 as well from $498. Ms. Isaacson also did a comparison on that and is recommending an increase to $354 for that, and that is actually proportionate to the increase in the single-family residence. It's basically 21% of that. She had a more fancy way of doing that, but it basically is just a proportional look at that. And what that does is that provides an even split between residential and commercial development, which we try to keep those in tune as we go forward. So that's the proposal before you tonight. This is a first read, of course. This will come back to you again on the 11th. But this is what we're proposing to do. Council has their choice on how you do that. On page 104, you'll see a bar chart and then also the numbers that shows how this would look in ranking with our sister agencies in the area. Our existing one is shown in green on that chart at $69.95. The increase by $1,500 for 2020 would put us up a little higher. We would move to below Arlington, below Anacortes, but slightly above Arlington in that. We're still far from the top. And by the way, you can anticipate that the other agencies will also increase. I use 2019 rates here, so they will be going up proportionally as well. I didn't put it in there, but Mount Vernon, for instance, has already passed a multi-year increase in their GFC that's not reflected in this. So I think it keeps us, I hate to use the word competitive, but comparable to our sister agencies by doing this. I did not give you a chart for the commercial fee. That one is handled much differently among the agencies. Most of our sister agencies use rate-based sewer systems, which kind of recognize that a little better than the way we do it. But the one that is directly comparable is Mount Vernon. We would still be under their rate with a bump to $354 that were proposed, their existing rate, which also will increase. So that's a first read for you. If you have any questions, or if I can give you an additional explanation on any of this, I'd be glad to do so.
All right. Any questions? Yes?
It says the committee was not unanimous, but the recommendation was to increase. What was the discussion from the committee?
Go ahead.
I believe the majority of the committee recommended the $1,500 bump and then a yearly adjustment based on the CPI.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Maybe Aaron or Mark could describe how we got to the $69.95 that was below the 2008 and was it 2007 number, and why we did that and what did it accomplish?
So that presentation back in 2013 was in recognition of the impact of the Great Recession on growth. Basically, our growth had gone from an average of 50, 60 units a year down to virtually none in 2008. I think we had 10 or so, something like that. And it limped along at that rate for a few years. So it was an attempt on council's part to recognize the impacts on the development community. That has basically been totally healed now at this point, and building is fairly robust. John's talked about up to 400 units over the next few years. We've recognized that, by the way, in the work that we did on the rates and the increases. We have allowed in our calculations 75 connections a year for the next 4 years and then 50 after that. That is perhaps a little optimistic, but I think somewhat reasonable based on the 400 units we're looking at. For instance, this year we're anticipating 80. I think we're actually up to that point right now, and there's a lot of things coming in. So this is the time to do this. As I mentioned before, if we don't cover the connection charge part, then all the burden falls then on the ratepayers. Right. And that's not the proper mix to have. We should be having new growth paying their proportionate share of the cost of these future capacity facilities that we've talked about adding at the treatment plant. And so that's what Katie was tasked to do, was to look at how that...
Mark, what is the actual... we heard the number in the committee, but if you could share to the rest of us, what is the actual number of making that hookup? The actual costs.
Well, again, it depends on how you calculate it. The highest cost in that chart was $16,496.
Right. I had also heard from Katie an actual cost of $21,000. So it's fair to say that since 2013, the taxpayers have been subsidizing this hookup fee for below what it costs us. And I believe, I recall at the committee meeting when I had asked, did we get any spikes in a graphical quantity over time, that there wasn't anything significant after reducing the rate down to $69.95. And so I was the person on the committee that was seeking for a higher, more equitable rate that less of us have to subsidize the development. And as you had said, pay the fair share of the connector. Thank you.
If I may make a comment regarding that, so we all know that whatever the builder has to add, it is passed on to the person who buys the house. So I don't know that that's really fair.
So it's not fair for the market to determine the price of of a house or to put in the cost of goods sold of what it takes to develop. I don't know what your definition of fair there is.
Well, what I'm saying is that it's really hard for a lot of people to get into a home, and if something is added, that cost increase is added at that extreme rate. I mean, that would have put us at the top of the list, or close to, on our chart. Where's the chart? On page 104. I think that would have put us, I think, right below Sultan, if I recall.
Well, it would put us
right
actually
there.
above Sultan. They're at 12,895 right now, the highest on the comparables you have. And so, yeah, ultimately, this is a council decision. This is one of the things Katie discussed with the Utilities Committee, how we do this. And there are a variety of ways of calculating this. I think it's prudent for us to balance the overall cost of development in Sedro-Woolley against our neighbors, and I think we want to encourage reasonable growth in the town, and so this does it. And I will say as well, $1,500 is a recognition that we have fallen behind some on this. And we're making up that partially by doing this. You could decide higher if you chose to. You could decide to do it differently any way you chose. We think this is a prudent way to handle it. And I will say that you'll have the opportunity to look at this again on an annual basis. And if we find these costs are not properly representing the cost of our doing business in Sedro-Woolley, then council can readdress that.
I think the 1,500 bump also will not discourage development. If we go higher than that, I'm concerned, I'm very concerned, it'll discourage development in Sedro-Woolley. Any more questions for Mark? Okay, so we'll see this again on the 11th, okay? Moving on to the countywide planning policy update. John?
Thank you. So if the council had the opportunity to read the memo, I tried to describe what's going on here. So the Skagit Council of Governments Steering Committee, which is the leaders from each jurisdiction, asked the planners group, what we call the SCOG TAC, Technical Advisory Committee, to look at the countywide planning policies and kind of clean them up, because there hasn't been a major overhaul in several years, so since 2007. So with that task, the planners group tried to do just a quick cleanup of it, address some of the inconsistencies, and make sure that it's consistent with the Skagit County comprehensive plan and just the regional planning documents that have been adopted over the years. And tonight, what we're asking for is if the council or the public has any comments, now's a good time to give them to the mayor, so she can then go and, as her job as mayor, she's a representative on SCOG steering committee, and then she can bring any concerns or comments on these updates to the greater board of SCOG. Like I said, these are really housekeeping measures, and we're directed not to make any substantive changes, and we have not recommended any substantive changes.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Okay. So I don't know if you've had a chance to read through it, but if you have and you have any comments, I really would appreciate that. I will take it back to the SCOG board and represent the city. So, all right, thank you. So right now I'm looking at the clock. It is 8:48, almost 8:50, 10 minutes. We do need to have executive session, so I am wondering, are you willing to stay a little longer if we finish up with the criminal code update on marijuana and then move into executive session? Or take the criminal code to the next council meeting? What's the council's pleasure?
Madam Mayor, I'm completely happy with the criminal code update, so maybe that's just a fast vote.
Yeah, that's fine. It's going to be...
Okay.
It's just clean up.
Okay, so I have a motion by DeYoung. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Councilwoman Cornegay. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Okay, so we will be going into executive session under RCW 42-3144, and this is to discuss collective bargaining. Action will be requested, and we will be out about 15-20 minutes. So we are back, and we are looking for a motion to ratify the collective bargaining.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to ratify the collective bargaining.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilwoman Kinzer, second by Councilwoman Cornegay. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, if there's no objection, we are adjourned.